we have a very interesting panel where we're going to continue the conversation about whether or not Bitcoin SV can help reinvent the internet, especially for people who are the creators of online and social media content. Can Bitcoin SV and the blockchain actually help creators make money from their content? Joining us to discuss this is a panel of people with varying degrees of experience in this field in terms of actual usage of the applications on Bitcoin SV. And I think it'll be really interesting to hear from all of these people who are content creators themselves. Let's welcome them all to the virtual screen because they're all appearing virtually from different places. At the bottom of our screen there we have Isaac Morehouse, who BSV people will know. He is the CEO of Crash Inc. as well as Praxis. Hello, Isaac.
Hello, Jimmy. Great to be here.
Thank you. Joining us from our London studio live is Eileen Brown, who is a writer and blogger for ZDNet and other publications. Hello, Eileen.
Hi, Jimmy. It's nice to see you, albeit virtually, from London.
All right. And finally, we have a surprise guest panelist who many of you may know, and hopefully you've read his books, of which he has many best-selling ones, as well as listened to his podcast on NPR One. He is the author and host of Team Human, both a book and a podcast. He's a professor of media theory and digital economics at CUNY, Queens, the City University of New York here in Queens. He is Douglas Rushkoff. Welcome, Douglas.
Hey, good to be with you.
Thank you. I'm going to ask each of the panelists to start by giving an introduction of who you are and the kind of work you do, and also what experience you have so far with Bitcoin and Bitcoin SV. And I think I'll start with Douglas this time.
Well, I was an early computer and internet enthusiast. You know, I was one of the people back who, you know, when I saved my first read-write file, realized that the whole world could be saved as read-write files instead of read-only files, and money seemed to be the king of all files that were artificially locked down. And I started wondering from the late '80s and early '90s, and got involved in what was called the crypto anarchy movement, really looking at what are the possibilities for alternative and local currencies, and along the way, you know, was always interested in keeping the internet social and about people rather than extractive and about business. How do we keep it, you know, peer-to-peer and alive? And when the Bitcoin white paper came out, I thought, you know, this could be it. You know, this could be the way that we really help to engender a much more of a Tor-like, you know, almost serverless peer-to-peer internet economy and culture at the same time. So I'm, you know, really excited now to see the kind of the original values of Bitcoin get retrieved by Bitcoin SV, where we're looking less at how do we grow businesses with tokens and really how do we facilitate peer-to-peer exchange and authentication between real people.
Great. Good to hear. Eileen, tell us about your experience.
Well, I got involved with social media in about 2004 when I was working at Microsoft and looking at it purely from a business perspective. I first heard about Bitcoin several years ago when there was challenges of people losing their seed code and losing their passwords and losing lots and lots of money. But I was more interested in the technology and the potential for the scalability. And of course, because I've been on social media since 2004, over the last 16 years, I've seen many, many platforms rise and fall again. And it's quite interesting that I followed one platform for 2 years and I saw it rise and fall. And it was trying to reward the content creators for their original content. It was not built on blockchain, and it would be an absolutely perfect case study for a success story of social media on the blockchain. So I started using social media, blockchain-based social media apps with Twitch from last October. And I had some barriers to get started, namely I couldn't post for the first time because I didn't have any money in my wallet. I've never actually bought any Bitcoin, but fortunately somebody onboarded me with $5 so that I could start to post on Twitch. And I also use Powping, which has no limitations with the paying to post, although I still need an electronic wallet to receive tips. And I think I've earned nearly $30 now over the past year. So I'm never going to be a big investor, but I'm very interested in the potential of the scalability.
Right. And I know you've written some articles covering Bitcoin SV applications, so that's good to have you here. Isaac, well, most of the Bitcoin SV community knows who you are, but please introduce yourself.
Yeah, Jimmy, I'm really just a curious numpty over here. As you mentioned, I'm an entrepreneur, the CEO of Crash.co, but I'm also a content creator. I've written several books, I hosted several podcasts, published thousands of articles, and a little over a year ago started a Bitcoin show with three other guys. We call ourselves the Numpties, sort of playfully, and was posting those videos to YouTube and getting, 3, 4, 5,000 views. And I was like, hey, this is a lot of fun. And we switched over to Streamanity, which is a video hosting service that uses BSV for payments. And I can tell you, Jimmy, I have seen the future for content creators, and it is built on Bitcoin SV, and it is phenomenal. The world, there's nothing like experiencing something to really understand it. Because I've been following Bitcoin and been an early experimenter for probably since 2012 with all these different apps. But actually, the difference between posting to YouTube and then posting to Streamanity, putting a price on it, and seeing what you can do with near instant, almost zero fee transactions down to the hundredth of a penny. You can divide them up, revenue shares instantly between as many people as you want, give a share to people who promote it. I just saw like this eureka moment. This changes everything for content creators. I'm so bullish on the world of independent content creators. And I think the world of the market, the consumer market, is more tired than ever of like big branded institutional creators, more skeptical. And the growth of whether it's TikTok and Instagram influencers, independent podcasters, self-published people, that market is huge. And I think the promise of the internet removing the transaction costs of exchanging information has been realized. But until now, the transaction cost of exchanging value, of exchanging money, has been too high to really decentralize and make everybody their own company, their own firm, and be truly peer-to-peer with the relationship between creators and consumers. And now I have tasted just a little bit of what is possible on Bitcoin SV, and that has me ridiculously excited.
Well, it's great to hear you're so excited, Isaac. Now, I want to talk to you all about how you perceive the differences between, I would call, the legacy online service and social media platforms that we have today, such as Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, that content creators use, and this new breed of on-chain services such as Twetch or Streamanity on Bitcoin SV, which allow creators to both own their content and data and monetize with micropayments. Doug, what's your perception of this growing area of on-chain services? I know we've asked you to take a look at some of them. I don't know how much you've had a chance to actually engage with the platforms, but what do you think of it from your experience as a content creator?
Well, I mean, I think when we moved from traditional publishing to online publishing, we saw in some ways a democratization of these spaces, but we also saw the immense impact of power law dynamics on creation. So we thought that giving people more access, having more openness on YouTube to create our own videos, that it would lead to a long tail of many more people being able to make content that actually gets looked at. What happened actually was the reverse. We saw power law dynamics, which means that the things that are in the top 5 or top 10 videos end up getting all the likes, or we have fewer musicians making a whole lot more money and a whole lot of musicians selling 1 or 2 records each. And as I see us move from what you're calling sort of legacy media platforms to blockchain-based ones, I think we're going to see yet another leap in that direction. We're going to see more and more velocity and more power law dynamics, and even a greater split with Brad Pitt over in legacy media, me maybe in medium media, and then a billion people in more blockchain type media. So I think we'll see, many people making that $30, but fewer people making, perhaps making sustainable income. Not that that's a terrible thing, but what I think it will do is create kind of a new, almost a prosumer level of media. Tons of podcasts that get 100 to 200 listens each, and where the person makes, $40, $50 a week doing it. So it's kind of a prosumer, slightly paid amateur level of everything, which is not necessarily a bad thing. It's just a different thing. I think it's going to be harder to be a professional content maker, and the line between a professional content maker and a kind of successful social media human is gonna collapse.
Eileen, that's some interesting comments from Doug. The legacy platforms don't make it easy for content creators to make any money. For example, on YouTube, you have to hit 1,000 subscribers, for example, on your channel before you can even monetize with your own ads, and I think 4,000 watch hours. Do you think allowing content creators to make money, even if it's small amounts, immediately is enough to entice content creators to move to these on-chain services?
Yes, I certainly do, because let me take you back to 2014 when a brand new social media platform called SU came out, TSU, based out of New York. That got 1 million users within 5 weeks of opening, and they were attracted to the possibility of, if they made individual, unique content, that they would be rewarded by their content, by their friends and their followers. Now, Sue as a platform only lasted for 2 years because a lot of people came onto the platform wanting to make a lot of money, wanting to get rich quick, and using Google images and copied and stolen copyrighted images and passing them off on their own. And that's where the immutability of the blockchain comes in, because you can post something onto social media, Powping, for example, that content is yours. And I think that's going to completely change the way we view social media. Instead of Facebook actually drawing your eyes towards the adverts and the advertisers in order to get their revenue to scale the platform, now you can own your own content that stays with you on whichever platform you happen to put it on. And instead of people drawing you in to watch the adverts, you will get paid individually, whatever, 1 cent, 2 cents, $2, $20, that's irrelevant, but that content will be yours forever. It won't be passed off because it's on the public ledger and it's there forever. So I think in the future, it's going to completely change the way we use social media. Even Jack Dorsey of Twitter on Tuesday said that he's running a project called Project Blue Sky, in which he's going to move Twitter to the blockchain. So that tells you straight away this is going to be successful from a technical perspective. And now with the scalability, nothing's going to work without scalability. Facebook does not run on one server. It runs on a whole chain of servers. And blockchain is going to give you that scalability, that horizontal scalability, to enable hundreds of millions of people to be able to use this.
Isaac, let's talk about business models as a content creator. How has the services and micropayments capability of Bitcoin SV and things like Streamanity, Twetch, Powping, how has that opened your mind as to different types of ways you can charge for your content and make money for your content? And are there ways you're looking to experiment?
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. And let's take a concrete example, because there's sort of two benefits without projecting into the future what this means for the creator market. Right now, what the two benefits of creators switching to something blockchain based is, one, on the operational side, the simplicity and the reduction in transaction costs for all of the things that it takes to put out content. And then two is just the ability to grow and have a better relationship with your customers. So my friend Steve Patterson, who does the Numpty show with us, he's got a podcast, a blog, books, Patterson in Pursuit, and he runs it through Patreon because it's sort of a classic 1,000 true fans type of thing, where I don't even know if he has enough people to monetize on YouTube, but he doesn't want the ads. So people subscribe on Patreon. Now you think about everything that's involved there. He might have somebody who does some editing work for him. Maybe somebody does a little graphic design, making the promo images on social. Maybe he has people that help him distribute and share his content. If he's running that like a business, he's got people that subscribe on Patreon. Patreon takes a big cut. He gets paid out once a month, takes 2, 3, 5 days for the money to hit his account. Now he's got to turn around and pay out all these contractors he's working with, the people who did the editing, the production, the promotion. He's also got to project ahead of time how much those services are going to be worth, whether they're going to increase the listenership, the subscribership. It's kind of a gamble. It's a lot of bookkeeping. It's a lot of management. Contrast that with what you can do right now on Streamanity and all the things I can imagine being able to do in the future. You can post something And you can have, when people purchase that episode, they can pay per episode. They could pay per minute or per second. You could easily have that accomplished. They can pay per episode $2, $5. That is instantly, it instantly hits the creator's account, and that creator, and you can do this today on Streamanity, can split that payment as many times as he wants to. So Steve could say, hey, my editor, he gets 10% of the revenue of every episode. The guy that does promos, I give him a promo link, and 10%, 20% of whoever watches through that link instantly goes into his wallet. You can divide, you can bring on guests and give them a revenue share. Hey, you're coming on as a guest, you get 30% of the revenue from this episode. And now instantly the money is in everyone's account based on what they've done. And we experimented with this with our videos. I did an interview with Steven Zeiler from AnyPay, a great merchant adoption company working on Bitcoin. And when I posted it, I'm not a good audio editor. You couldn't hear his audio. It was a lot quieter than mine. So I went to Twitch and I said, hey, does anyone know how to fix this audio? If you do, I'll give you 50% of the revenue for this video. And I was charging $1 for the video. It was like an 1.5-hour interview. Somebody direct messaged me and said, I can do it. I sent them the raw file. They gave me their pay mail, sent me back the fixed file. I uploaded it. I pasted their pay mail to my Streamanity, creator account and typed 50% revenue share. And everyone who watches that video in perpetuity, 50% of that $1 that they pay goes directly to this person. So I didn't really know the value of fixing that audio up front. And it just immediately made me realize, if you're an editor, a producer, a promoter, you can instantly start offering those services as your own company. You don't have to get hired by some content creator or try to come up with contracts ahead of time. And the ability to instantly split those revenues and share them, like that alone, from sort of a back-end operation standpoint, is a game changer for creators.
Well, it certainly would solve a lot of royalty and audit disputes in Hollywood for back-end participations, as I like to say in that industry. Doug, I know you are, obviously a student and thought leader and academic in media studies, and I was a communication studies major myself. So Marshall McLuhan is always front of mind for media, students. The famous saying, "The medium is the message." Informs me to ask you this question, which is, even though we're not necessarily changing the medium of delivery, it's still online, but blockchain powered because of micropayments capability and data ownership, do you think these on-chain services would shape or change the nature of the content that gets produced by content creators?
Yeah, I mean, and I very much prefer talking about blockchain-based content creation platforms than social media platforms. To me, they're kind of really different, and I'm interested to see them separate. So we can just socialize and not worry about paying anybody, but then get content where everything is paid for a lot more easily. I mean, I think the big shift is realizing that in many cases, content creation online, the medium is the business plan. So does the change in the business plan change the message? Yes. So when you're on YouTube or on one of the existing media platforms that are advertising based, you're basically making videos to appeal to an auction for eyeballs, right? That's a strange thing. So the more sensationalist you make your media, the more it serves the algorithms that are here to bring eyeballs to particular advertisers, the better your media. So you can't help, even if you're trying to stay conscious of it, you can't help as a content creator but change what you're doing to fit that business model. On the other hand, what the blockchain can allow is if people are basically paying for you, right? These are your listeners, your viewers paying for you. Then what you're doing is crafting better and better content for the audience that you're intending to reach. So it's to me, it looks like it would lead to a much more a natural, open channel between people and their audiences without this, strange middleman that we're all trying to satisfy. So it should lead to much higher content, higher quality content, and much less of that sort of recommendation engine hell that brings you into alt-right violence or Al-Qaeda or car crashes. It's going to bring actually toward people more toward what they're interested in than what ads could be run on top of.
By all means, let us get out of recommendation engine hell. Eileen, let's go to you. One of the advantages of these on-chain, blockchain platforms that we're talking about is the ability for users to own their own data and content, but also not need to give it to the platform providers. Current legacy platforms obviously monetize by monetizing the data of their consumers. How do you think these blockchain services will grow or not based upon a different approach where they do not have to monetize their users' data?
I think that's going to change dramatically because if you've ever been on a social media platform that's actually closed its doors, you've lost all of your data, you haven't been able to download it, and all the hard work that you put in to making content has all gone. The great thing about putting content onto the blockchain is it doesn't actually matter what the front-end application happens to be. Your data is immutably on the blockchain forever. And so you can access that particular piece of content from whatever platform you happen to be using at the time. And I think the permanence of this data will up the game for content creators, because content creators, especially those who have to actually pay to put their content on the blockchain, will be a lot more considered in the quality of content that they create for the blockchain. Their commentators, if they have to pay also, they will also be a little bit more considered in the content that they are actually putting on the blockchain. And I think it'll completely change the media landscape. For example, if you think about the way the World Wide Web works, you put a bit of content on and people use hyperlinks to actually link to that content. And people could replicate that content onto other servers. The hyperlinks change and you no longer get the eyeballs on your particular site. Well, a block is a block. Your content is in that block. It is always yours. And if somebody wants to replicate that content, well, that's no longer the same block. So the permanence is really, really key to making this actually your content. The only thing we need to sort out, that the Bitcoin industry needs to sort out, is to make the onboarding to these new social channels as frictionless as possible, so that even your mum could understand quite easily how to get onto these channels.
Isaac, do you think advertisers have a role in a blockchain online and social media universe?
Yeah, I never like to try to predict what the market will produce, but I can envision a lot of ways. One of the things that's exciting to me is the way that these blockchain-based, content platforms and micropayments can make a more seamless process between different types of media. So podcasts are a great example. They have a lot of listenership. They're a growing market, but they're notoriously bad at converting listeners to people doing anything else, because you're usually listening while you're walking, you're in the car, and they'll have advertisers or affiliates that will say, hey, you can go get a special discount on this product. Type in this thing. They're telling it to you verbally. Type in this web address. You got to go get on a website when you're back at your computer, do all this cumbersome stuff. I think the ability to make that seamless. So I can envision streaming podcasts from the blockchain, for example, and maybe you're paying per second or per minute. Maybe you get to the end of the free portion and it says, hey, if you want to listen to the paid portion, swipe right now and you get to listen to it. You don't have to go become a pro member and get all the paid versions. Or you have a guest on that wants to promote a book. And you say, hey, for your listeners, you get a 50% discount. Swipe now, and your wallet associated with your pay mail here will be charged $10, and you'll get the book in your inbox, or you'll get a code to go get it from, to go buy it from Amazon. The ability to make the connection seamless, I think, opens up a lot of possibilities for like native advertising or affiliate things that are less cheesy and less forced, that are more natural. In the middle of the conversation, you can have a gated portion, or you can have products that come along with it with a simple swipe. I think there's a new type of advertising that's likely to emerge.
Doug, let's go back to Eileen's point about the need to make onboarding as easy as possible for all users, especially people who are not familiar yet even with Bitcoin. I know we sent you a bit of an onboarding kit to educate you about some of these applications. I'm curious if you went through the process at all and how you found it, or what you think we as an ecosystem can do to make things easier for people.
Well, I mean, I'm an old programmer, so I mean, this is simple compared to some of that. I'm still back in my auto exec bat days, getting my MS DOS and Windows machines to work. I think the easiest, oddly enough, I think the most important thing in trying to onboard people into this is in some ways not to tell them even too much. Once you're talking about blocks and tokens and verification and all and authentication and where you know what I mean. Whereas I look at it's funny. I mean the main one I've been playing with is Mines, which has its own. They have a Mines token on there, and looking at the hardest thing for people to understand is what is the value. What are these units that they're using, and they're so fast to want to then translate. Oh well, how many of these are in $1? And it's sort of trying to get them off that and to get them thinking more about the value exchange that they're doing on the platform, particularly in the social ones, where what's my recommendation worth? And if you look at the way people are taught about currency in Minecraft, or even back in Second Life, they kind of catch on once they understand that they're in a new territory, that they've migrated, that they're like, citizens in a new country, and these are our customs. So that if they're thinking about it that way, almost before they're thinking about it in terms of monetization, it tends to help people, and also, and I think it's valuable, it helps keep money in world rather than I measure, in some ways, I measure the success of a system and how long are people willing to keep their money in the platform rather than constantly going to the bank and cashing out. You want it in the ecosystem. You want it circulating. So sort of the more you can create that feeling of welcome to this place, here's how we exchange value, and keep the whole, this is what it's worth outside in the other world, almost as a secondary consideration, I think we're better off.
Well, we're definitely in the Bitcoin SV ecosystem trying to develop a whole universe of applications and uses for people to use their BSV that they might earn from one of these applications in many places. And as that grows, it'll give them many more options so they don't have to convert to fiat currency. Eileen, you've gone through the onboarding experience yourself, obviously. What can we as an ecosystem do to make it easier for people like you and your friends and family to start becoming content creators or audience members of these platforms?
I think it needs to be frictionless so that all of the apps authenticate with each other using a suite of wallets, for example, and the concepts of why you have to have an electronic wallet needs to be made much more simple for ordinary users. It's very difficult for people of an older generation to even remember their passwords, let alone a seed phrase. And I noticed that the Handcash wallets making great steps to actually make that more frictionless by using a different type of authentication than a 12-word passphrase that makes anybody terrified that if they lose it, they've lost all of their earned dollars. So having something similar to open authentication in the traditional social media world would make things so much easier. And I think the question is, if your mother can get onto the blockchain and use Bitcoin seamlessly without asking you any questions at all, then you've actually succeeded in your goals.
Isaac, what do you think of some other ways that these platforms allow content creators to make money, such as the troll tax? I know that Twitch has implemented, so it costs somebody money to troll you. What do you think of that, and do you have any other creative ideas for such types of features that allow more earning?
Yeah, it's pretty interesting to see all these things emerge, like troll toll. If you want somebody to stop commenting, you can set a toll any amount you want to. And if they want to continue to engage, they have to pay that. And I see that more of as an incentive changer than necessarily a big moneymaker. Although I do have some friends that made like $50 because somebody couldn't stop trolling them, even though they, set a toll at like $10. In terms of, all the ways that are possible to make money, it's like the more you sit and think about it, you just go for a walk and start thinking through. There's no end to it. And I think, to me, where I'm at right now with this content creation on the blockchain is, you hear that for a new technology to be adopted, it's got to be like a 10x improvement over the status quo. And content creation consumption is a two-sided marketplace. So on the creation side, the creator side, right now, today, let's just take YouTube versus Streamandy. It is easily a 10x improvement for creators. The only thing holding them back, especially those lower mid-level YouTube creators that aren't making a ton of money there, having the complete control over how much they charge, how much they share revenue with promoters, et cetera, is the thing holding them back is they can't bring their audiences with them because their audiences, as we've just been discussing, have too hard a time getting the BSV needed to become consumers of that. And so frankly, the biggest impediment is law. It's KYC laws. The fact that you can't just put in a credit card and say, cool, I love this platform. Fill up my wallet with $20 and then I can go around and purchase stuff that you have to go and upload an ID and all this stuff. So I think solving that in some way, either working around those laws or those laws being changed or whatever, that's when the floodgates will open and then the experimentation will go crazy because it's already dramatically better for the creators. They just need to be able to bring their audiences with them and then have that direct peer-to-peer relationship with them. And then I think the experimentation in terms of ways to earn money, I mean, it's going to be off the charts.
Well, on that note about making it easier to get small amounts of BSV, one thing that CoinGeek and we at Bitcoin Association have supported is the buybsv.com platform. It's a website, it's a retail site where you can actually buy small amounts of BSV without KYC requirements under a certain threshold. It differs, around by jurisdictions, but if you go check that out, if there's a button that can actually be integrated to other sites so that a new user to a site, if they want, can just instantly buy BSV without going through KYC requirements, up to a certain limit, but certainly enough to get started, on one of these platforms. So we are definitely working to make those things easier. Doug, let me go back to you. So obviously there's great promise for content creators to be earning money on these blockchain, social and online platforms. What do you think are the big hurdles and barriers that, for example, our Bitcoin SV ecosystem still needs to overcome to get lots more content creators on this?
Well, I mean, it's almost always the same thing. I mean, what will have people running will be when there's a few crazy success stories. It's the Justin Biebers that get everybody going on YouTube. It's I even forgot her name, the star on TikTok that she's going to be in a movie now. When you see a few of those, then everybody will come on. So in some ways, I feel like the trick is like when even it's a terrible example, but when, Spotify gets Joe Rogan to start doing his podcast on there, then people come. When Howard Stern went to Sirius XM, then people took that seriously. So it's even if you have to bring them in as a stakeholder, bringing in a few, tempting some current content creators. And also the other way to do it, it seems the most successful so far, is when one of the legacy platforms does something really bad. When they're doing something and they get everyone upset, when people say, oh my God, they just changed our agreement. They just changed our privacy. They just changed our ownership. And then it's like, where do we go? Then it's a matter of having a kind of a readiness to pounce on that, to be there to receive them is really almost what you have to do. It's almost an opportunistic waiting game for that moment when people are going to jump ship and then be ready for them.
So when we get you, Doug, onto one of the BSV social platforms and you're posting a lot of your content there, we're all going to take off, right?
Well, I wish I was big enough to do that. But yeah, I mean, sometimes you have to build up, But yeah, I mean, when he's talking about, I struggle on Patreon with my podcast. I've got 60,000 people who listen and 200 who are paying members, and I think, damn, if these 60,000 people were given 10 cents a pop, I'd be making more money than begging these people who don't have the money to pay $10 a month.
And that's right. And you can earn that on Bitcoin BSV applications. So we're going to get you on at some point.
Exactly.
Eileen,
I know how to use it.
let me
Right.
turn. Awesome. Yeah. So we're going to get a new content creator out of this. Eileen, so let's get a last thought from you. What do you foresee as future trends or predictions of how blockchain-based online applications will change the very nature of consumer behavior and content?
Well, the analysts Gartner have predicted that blockchain-based activities will add $3.1 trillion worth of business value into enterprises, right the way down to individual content creators by the year 2030. That is a massive amount of money, and it's available for anybody that creates content. And so I think solve the technology issues, which are on the way with potential scalability and terabyte-sized blocks, solve the onboarding issues, and people will come to the platform because they see a definite value for them, because they're actually being rewarded for what they actually contribute to the internet, as opposed to, at the moment, they're putting money in somebody else's pocket.
Isaac, I'm going to give you 60 seconds to do a commercial to the world out there of online content creators and social media creators about why they should be using a Bitcoin SV powered application. Go.
Yeah, you really need to experience it to see how amazing it is. So everyone who's a content creator, Doug included, come over. If you're making videos or podcasts, come over to Streamanity and attempt it. And at least with the small band of rabid SV users on there, put 10 cents, 50 cents on there and see what it feels like to experience that. And until a big personality like Doug is there, the numpties will have to shoulder the burden of elevating the success stories of creating on these platforms. But come over and try it. And there's a really cool thing, to Doug's point, really quickly, on making the early success story creators stakeholders. Streamanity, I think, just announced a couple weeks ago, if someone comes onto their platform and their first purchase is your video, so let's say they watch one of my videos first, from then on out, any transaction they make, any video they purchase on that platform, I get a percentage of that in perpetuity, like 5%. So any big creator that's bringing new people to the platform is a stakeholder, and so it's a really cool time to get there early. Even if you only bring a handful of your listeners or followers with you, give it a try. It's actually a really fun experiment.
All right, Doug, and we'll conclude with you with this interesting question. And I asked this about on an earlier panel. We've talked a lot about the difference between the legacy and now the blockchain platforms. But do you think that the more legacy social media platforms can play a role in the blockchain universe with the Twitches, Powpings, and Streamanities of the world on BSV?
Well, they're certainly going to try to, aren't they? I mean, the one thing Facebook seems good at is somehow buying whatever it is that it sees as a threat, and usually ruining it, unfortunately. But you know what I mean, though. They seem ready. I mean, I feel like the best defense against that, and the best way to get them to play nice, is what he was just describing about Streamanity. The more that blockchain enterprises or blockchain-based enterprises can be understood as platform cooperatives, in other words, the more that our participation in the platform gives us some kind of ownership stake in what's happening, then the more we're going to understand it as ours, the more we're going to take ownership for everything that happens there. And that's a fundamentally different energy than what Facebook is doing. So I think then a Facebook or a YouTube can participate in certain ways and try to share content and all that, but then it's going to feel much more like not it's them interacting with them, but them interacting with us. You know, we're going to feel more like the home team. And that's going to change the way we relate. It's going to change how much power we feel we have as stakeholders in this universe when that universe wants to interact with us. So, no, I definitely do see it. And they're going to want to share content of all sorts and get us to look at their stuff. But all of a sudden, then they're going to learn, what is two-way linking? What is this? What do you mean the piece of content stays associated with you all the time? It's like, yeah, that's our culture. Those are our rules. If you want to play with us, you're going to have to learn how human beings actually interact about their content and creativity.
Thank you very much. And yes, come play in our world, as Doug just mentioned. I want to thank all of our panelists. Before we let them go, I'm going to say this out to the Bitcoin SV Society out there on Twitter. I want to actually run a Twitter poll right now. You can just send it with some notes to everyone across Twitter about what should be the subject matter of both Eileen and Doug Rushkoff's first videos on Streamani or any other platform, because we're going to get them posting videos so that Eileen can make more than $30 and Doug can make many multiples of that. So shoot your suggestions out to Twitter and we'll see if we can get them some really good suggestions for content. I want to thank Eileen, Doug, and Isaac for joining me for this really, really exciting and interesting conversation, and good luck.